You slept 8 hours last night, maybe even 9. You went to bed early, you did everything right. But when the alarm went off this morning, you felt like you hadn't slept at all. Your body got up, but something inside you didn't. You pour coffee, you sit down, you scroll through your phone for a bit, and already, before the day even starts, you're exhausted. So you tell yourself what you always tell yourself, I just need more rest. But deep down, you know that's not it, because you've tried resting, and it didn't fix anything. What if the problem was never about how much you sleep? We all grew up hearing the same thing. You're tired? Go to bed earlier. Get your 8 hours. Rest more. So we do. We sleep in on weekends, we nap on the couch, we binge a show and call it recovery, but none of it works. Monday comes and you're right back to dragging yourself through the day like you're running on 2% battery. We figured more sleep would fix everything. It didn't. And instead of questioning the advice, we questioned ourselves. Maybe I'm just lazy. Maybe something's wrong with me. But nothing's wrong with you. The advice was wrong. Here's what's actually happening inside your brain. Right now, as you're watching this, your brain is running background tasks. Not just one or two, dozens. That email you haven't replied to, the bill you forgot to pay, the conversation with your friend that ended weird and you're not sure if they're mad at you, that thing your boss said on Friday that you're still replaying.
I'll fix it right away.
None of these are big, but every single one of them is open,
Look at this.
running,
Browser
draining
tabs
power.
everywhere. This
In
is what
psychology,
digital chaos
this is
looks
called
like.
the Zeigarnik Effect.
We need to talk.
Your brain treats unfinished tasks like open browser tabs. It can't let them go. It keeps them running in the background even when you think you're resting. So when you lie on the couch on a Sunday watching Netflix, your body is resting, but your brain, it's still running 50 tabs. No wonder you're exhausted. But it gets worse. Think about your average workday. You're writing an email and a Slack notification pops up. You check it, then you go back to the email. Then your phone buzzes, a text. You glance at it, then back to the email. You think you're being productive. You think you're handling it. Professor Sophie Leroy at the University of Washington calls what's happening attention residue. Every time you switch tasks, your brain doesn't fully switch. A piece of your attention stays stuck on the last thing. Like wet paint that hasn't dried, it smears onto everything you touch next. So by the end of the day, your attention has been split, smeared, and shredded across dozens of tasks. You haven't done any deep work, but your brain has burned through a full tank of fuel. And then you get home and wonder why picking what to eat for dinner feels impossible. That's not laziness. That's a brain that's been running on fumes since 2 in the afternoon. Now here's where it gets personal. You finally finish the day. You're done. You should sleep. Your body is begging for it. But you don't. Instead, you pick up your phone. You scroll TikTok. You watch random videos you don't even care about. 1 a.m., 2 a.m. You know you should stop, but you can't because this is the first moment all day that feels like yours. Your boss owned your morning, your meetings owned your afternoon, your responsibilities owned your evening. And now, at 1 in the morning, with the lights off and your phone glowing in your face, your brain is finally doing something it wants to do, even if that something is absolutely nothing. Researchers call this revenge bedtime procrastination. You're not an insomniac. You are stealing back your freedom at the cost of your own sanity. And the cost, you wake up destroyed. Again.
But here's the part that really got me. Stanford psychiatrist Dr. Anna Lembke has spent years studying what happens to the brain when it gets too much stimulation. She calls it the dopamine deficit state. Here's the simple version. Your brain has a balanced system. Pleasure on one side, pain on the other. Every time you get a hit of dopamine, a like on your post, a bite of fast food, a funny video, the pleasure side tips down. But then your brain compensates. It tips the other side down harder into pain to rebalance. Do that over and over, scroll for 3 hours, binge content, chase one small hit after another, and your brain stops producing dopamine at normal levels. It goes into deficit. And what does dopamine deficit feel like? Exhaustion, emptiness, that flat gray feeling where nothing sounds fun and everything feels like effort. You didn't do anything all day and you're still tired? No, you spent 3 hours flooding your brain with micro hits of dopamine until the tank ran dry. You're not tired, you're in chemical withdrawal. And here's the darkest layer. Some of you aren't just tired,
You're frozen. You spend entire weekends in bed, not sleeping, just existing. You cancel plans, you stare at the wall. You know you should get up, but your body won't move. And then you hate yourself for wasting another day. But that's not laziness either. When stress becomes too much for too long, your nervous system does something extreme. It shuts down. Not fight, not flight, freeze. Like an animal playing dead because the threat is too big to run from. You're going through the motions, work, eat, scroll, sleep, but inside, the lights are off. Your body isn't resting, it's in survival mode. And survival mode doesn't recharge, it just keeps you alive. And the weekends, you think you're resting on that couch, but there's a quiet voice whispering the whole time, you should be doing something productive right now. You're not resting. You are spending your entire weekend in a mental MMA fight with your own guilt. And guilt takes a massive amount of energy to wrestle with. 66% of American workers reported burnout in 2025, an all-time high. 72% of Gen Z say they experience at least one burnout symptom. This isn't a personal failure. This is an entire generation running on emergency power. So if rest isn't fixing it, what does? I'm not going to tell you to meditate or take a bubble bath. That advice assumes your problem is physical. It's not. Your exhaustion has layers, and each layer needs a different kind of fix. The first one I call the brain dump. Remember the Zeigarnik Effect? Open tabs draining your battery? The only way to close them is to get them out of your head, not by finishing them, just by writing them down. Tonight, take 3 minutes before bed. Grab a piece of paper and write down everything that's sitting in your brain. The tasks, the worries, the random things you keep telling yourself you'll remember, all of it, out of your head, onto the page. When Bruno tried this, he didn't expect much, but that night, for the first time in weeks, his brain actually went quiet. Not because the problems were solved, but because he gave his brain permission to stop holding on to them. The paper was holding them now. You're not writing a plan, you're hitting force quit on all your mental apps.
The second one might sound strange, but it works. I call it the low dopamine morning. For the first hour after you wake up, don't touch your phone. No Instagram, no TikTok, no news, no email, nothing. This is going to feel boring. That's the point. When you grab your phone the second you open your eyes, you're spiking your dopamine before the day even starts. It's the neurochemical equivalent of taking a straight shot of vodka for breakfast. It ruins your baseline for the rest of the day. But if you let that first hour stay boring, just coffee, just silence, just existing, your dopamine baseline stays stable, and the rest of the day, normal things actually feel like enough. When Ziggy tried this, the first 3 days were brutal. He reached for his phone 6 times before breakfast. But by day 4, something shifted. He felt calmer, less scattered. He described it as, "My brain finally stopped screaming at me." 1 hour, no screen. That's it. The third one is the most counterintuitive. When you're exhausted, the last thing you want to hear is move your body. But here's the truth. Lying on the couch watching Netflix is not rest. It's digital anesthesia. Your brain doesn't recover by consuming more content. It recovers by switching modes, from thinking to feeling, from screens to senses. A 20-minute walk, cooking something with your hands, stretching on the floor. These aren't exercise, they're active recovery. You're not burning energy, you're shifting it. Your brain can only truly rest when your body wakes up. Pip resisted this one the most. She was so tired she couldn't imagine doing anything. But one night, instead of scrolling in bed, she walked around the block. Just once, 10 minutes. And when she came back, something was different. Her brain was quieter. Not solved, just quieter. She slept better that night than she had in months. You don't have to run a marathon. Just move for 10 minutes. Let your body remind your brain that it still exists outside of a screen. Here's what I want you to take from this. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not bad at resting.
You're exhausted because your brain is running 50 background apps. Your attention is split across 100 tasks. Your dopamine is in debt. And your nervous system hasn't felt safe enough to truly rest in months, maybe years. And the world keeps telling you to just sleep more. That was never the answer. We were taught that rest is a reward you earn after finishing all your work. But let's be honest, the work is never finished. Rest is not a reward. Rest is a boundary you draw in the sand. Before you fall asleep tonight, try one thing, just one. Write it down, put the phone away, or take a short walk, and then ask yourself, honestly, when was the last time you actually rested? Not slept, rested. That question might be the most important one you ask yourself all week. Sources are in the description.